Hey everybody, let me start presenting it. So we had done this like some time ago. I will just quickly introduce myself, and then if you want to reach out, I'm Saurabh on Twitter or of course on Slack. So you can reach out anytime if you have questions. Um, so this is something about me. I've been a programmer all my life, mostly when I was going to a day job, or even like my previous remote job has been in a .NET C# kind of full stack environment. I've been working since 2006. I've started like two companies in the past, like exited the second one, and I switched to working remotely in 2015. Essentially, I had a daughter and she was growing up fast, so to spend more time with her at home, I thought, I was working with a startup that acquired my startup at that time. After about 4 years, I decided like I need to slow down my life a bit, smell the roses. So I quit and started looking for remote jobs. And I had never done this before. So this has been my sort of history since then. So the first remote startup I got actually quite quickly, like it was a weird thing. So I got a US-based startup in SFO, which was completely like, diametrically opposite to us. I lasted there 5 weeks and then I sort of quit. It was not working out. So they had a probation period for 6 weeks, so I quit before that. Then I got my second gig with a UK enterprise startup, which was a .NET company. So I worked there for about 2 years. Then I took a break for about 4 to 6 months, 4 to 6 months, tried my hand at a little bit of freelancing. Also been part of the Gigster network. So this is the time I sort of switched over just to doing Gigster work, which pays really well, but it is not consistent. So like I realized after 6 months that I need that sort of consistency in my life. So I didn't do much then. I used to work 2 hours like every day on an average and just read books and watch a lot of TV. But then I got back into the job hunt. I took again a gig with an Australian startup, which again worked for 4 weeks, which was on the other side of the world. And then since then I quit that, and since then I've been working with a UK-based enterprise startup. So it says 2+ years. That was last year. So now I've been with them for 3 years. And during this time, I've also been involved in hiring remotely for this company that I work for right now. I've hired more than 5 engineers and done a lot of interviews, both on both sides of the table. So I have some tips around that as well. This deck is mostly for people who are looking to sort of like uh, you will be able to like pull some tips and tricks if you are uh, seasoned, but it's mostly like geared at people who are thinking about getting a remote job and it's the first time they're doing there. So I'm just making a list of all the things I tried and what worked well for me, so you can get a jump start on not making the same mistakes I did. So before we get started, like just let's talk about the resume for a bit. One of the biggest tips that I have is that you have to trim down your resume. No matter how many years of experience you have, don't have it more than 1 page. 2 pages, pushing it if you can't help it. But I think 1 page is more than sort of sufficient. The goal of resume is not to sort of get you the job. It's to get you an interview, like intrigue them enough to give you a call. And think of it from that point of view. Don't think of it as like, I have to jot down my entire work history. So even if you work with 5 companies, like just put 1 or 2 bullet points as to what cool things you did there, or like, what major changes you sort of got there. Like the last point says talk about improvements. Numbers make a big difference. So saying stuff like that, oh, we had 40 million users in that startup, or I did the backend service I wrote served 2 million requests an hour. Like that kind of helps and puts in perspective like of your skills. Uh, so other couple of things, like it helps to have multiple resumes depending on what kind of job you're looking for. To give an example, that my initial resume was a .NET focused thing. So it didn't work very well for companies that were not hiring for .NET people. So I had like a second resume, which was basically more of a full stack developer kind of thing. I spoke more about the kind of projects I've done versus talking about the tech stack. So do the same thing. Have like, if you're of course applying to a .NET job, have a .NET resume. But if you're applying to a say a full stack Node.js job, have a resume which talks about full stack. Like most people know that once you're a little bit experienced, like 3-4 years experience, like it doesn't matter what stack you're from because you'll pick up and run with the stack that you have. Like my company currently that I'm working for, I had no experience in any of the technology stack that they worked at, and it still worked out totally fine. Yeah, let's go about the application process. So this is, I think, a standard, like, a lot of everybody goes through it, and like you'll go through it if you're starting. Like, you send one resume, and you think that, oh, like, this was a perfect fit for me. There is no way they will not hire me. So I'm going to rest till I hear back from them. So this is a common theme with everybody. I've been there, done that. It's a flawed approach. Like, essentially, like, the way you need to go about it is you have to make it a concentrated effort. Like, you cannot just like send 1 or 2 resumes, like 1 or 2 days, and like, hope it'll convert. You need to have a goal, like have a task list, or have something that you need to send it at least to 3 to 5 companies a day without fail. Like, even if it's a Saturday, Sunday, it needs to be a task. Like, I'm going to spend 1 hour applying to 3 or 5 companies daily. So in a month, you would have applied to 90 to 150 companies, which is quite a bit. And if you do that, you increase your odds substantially. It will, of course, make you very thick-skinned, because you will get rejected a lot, and that helps, because you are going to get rejected. And now with the remote work being more sort of, everybody wants to like work remotely, like you're going to get rejected a lot. So grow thick skin is totally fine. I'll share some numbers with you, like what I went through the first time I approached. This was 5 years ago, so like things have changed drastically. But uh, by applying lots, also you get feedback quicker, and like what's working, what's not. So you can modify your resume accordingly, and like A/B testing kind of thing. And I've been at both places. I've applied daily, concentrated when I was out of a job, and I got a lot more response then versus when I'm just applying once in a while I'm still in a job. Like, I never hear back there. So like applying randomly never got me anywhere. I don't think it's a great approach. You have to be focus and like apply. So I sort of have a Google spreadsheet when I applied for a job last, and I made it a game. Like, I track every application. When did I send it? How did I hear about it? What cover letter did I write? So I have Evernote, and I just keep a track of every cover letter I've written to get sort of ideas of what is working, when, like, what kind of cover letters get me better response, etc., etc. And what resume did you send them? So all my resumes are version like 1, 1.1, 1.2, etc. So like, if I hear back either, then I know that what resume is working, and I then send that more often. It's like an A/B testing kind of thing. So the first time I sort of applied, this was my law of averages. Like, you need to work your law of averages out. It'll give you more insight the next time you're looking for a job. So the first time I applied to 93 companies. I got like 9 positive replies, as in like it went on to almost a job offer. 16 rejections in which they said no. And then, like, if you'll see, 64 was no reply. So about 70% people never get back to you, and that's like very common. So expect that. Don't be disheartened if you don't hear back from them. And this is what my law of averages is. So eventually, if I sort of calculate this, I know that if I apply to 24 companies, I get 1 job offer. And if I apply to 4 companies, I get 1 reply. So about 25% of the companies will reply back to you. So don't be dejected if you're not hearing back. It's a very common trend. So this really helps. So, your job is just to apply. Everything else works out itself. So this is my stats, like 68% no replies, which is as well as rejection. Outright rejection is 17%, in which they'll say, hey, sorry, we're moving with somebody else, or like it's not a good fit, etc., which is good. So then you can sort of cancel that out and move ahead. Positive reply, I consider positive reply if we get back to you, you have an interview with them, or like it sort of falls through if you're too expensive for them. That's also a positive reply. It's not your fault, it's just that they cannot afford you. And I know that 25 applications gets me 1 offer. So that's my law of averages. Yours would differ. And of course, as you become more and more senior, like this will become more and more skewed, because again, it will become a little bit more expensive. You'll have to apply to more places to get a job gets that gets your job. Where to look for jobs? Like, this is also important. Like, it's important to sort of figure out what works for you and stick there. Uh, if you heard about the job very easily, like, then everybody else has heard too. There'll be a lot of applications there. Like, you have to remember this. So if you are just like sort of subscribed to 3, 4 newsletters, free newsletters which send you job opportunities, like there are like thousands of people getting it and thousands of people applying for it. So it's a bigger pond. You're a small fish in a bigger pond. So like, keep that in mind. when I started applying, you should apply from everywhere and then see where you get responses from. That will be your sort of group and niche, and that kind of place will work better for you. So for me, Hacker News jobs work better, like because my background was sort of in startups and I worked with a YC company, so like that they kind of responded better to me, but like it will be different for different people. For me, next best has been Stack Overflow jobs. And then, of course, if you're part of a lot of remote work Slack groups, like say here, like Remote Indian, and then there's Remotive and other places, it's useful because A, you get to hear about the job very quickly, and B, you can talk to the people who are putting the job, so you have a conversation with them. So it's always helps. Others have not worked out for me, like so far. Like there are hundreds of job sites out there, a lot of them are remote centric. See which is best for you and keep your eyes and ears open. Applying quickly helps because if it's a good company and stuff, being first like matters. So it pays to be there early. Like not totally true. Like recently we hired for our company and the person we ended up recruiting joined was applied after 5 weeks. And so it matters. But like overall, it's always better to apply early. So like keep your eyes and ears open. There are some companies now which will help you get a job and then they get a cut, either a recruiter's fee or they will take a percentage of a salary. Like either ways works. Like I have worked and got good results on acework.io. Like basically, uh, I've got interviews with Automatic and a few other companies directly, which would be much difficult to have gotten if I applied that like to them directly. So by acework.io, I got it like quickly. I've not worked with anybody else. I can't recommend. But then the other approaches, of course, you can work with company like Pesto.tech. So they have so all these companies like will work for you because they get paid if you get hired. So they're on the same team as you. So keep a lookout for it. There might be other companies out there. Right. Some other things that have helped, which I've realized over a period of time, notice periods. Like if you have a 2-3 month notice period, it's going to be much difficult for you to get a job while you're still in a job because most global companies will not wait for 2 months. Like the standard notice period in the US is about 2 to 4 weeks. So what like every time I've looked for a job, I've been in my notice period, which has helped because I've been in a position where I could join within 2-3 weeks or maybe like a month from now. So that definitely helps. Everything being equal, an employer will pick up a person who can join quicker than a person who will join later. Of course, it doesn't apply to companies who are always hiring in big companies like Automatic, but like smaller companies who are hiring remotely will definitely prefer that. So I would say that like if you are going to be applying for companies while you're still at a job with a 2-3 month notice period, it's going to be difficult for you to convert. It might be better that you have quit, you put in your papers, prep, and then like once like a month is left, you start applying in the earnest, and you'll get a job within a month, like most of the times. Telling the employer where you heard about the job also helps make a connection. So like when I write a cover letter, I say, hey, I heard about a job on Hacker News. So that helps that, oh, like, you're part of the same group, like we like Hacker News, you guys, you also like Hacker. So it helps a little bit. And don't shy away from applying for a smaller junior positions. Like I don't I, I feel that like the tag doesn't matter. So like if you're a senior engineer now and you're applying for just an engineer or junior engineer, sometimes it doesn't matter. Especially if you're working in India and now you're applying for a UK US kind of job, a junior position will still probably pay you higher than what a senior position will. And my first job that I got with the UK the second job, which I worked for 2 years, was similar. They were looking for a junior developer, but they were paying like above like senior level salaries in India. So it was a win-win for both me and for them as well. So like, don't be shy from applying. Like sometimes it will work. This is I found cover letters are important. Always write a cover letter, even if they don't require you to, because it puts you in the top 10%. Like 90% people will not write one if it doesn't require. So write one, it will put you higher there. And then take time to sort of customize the cover letter for your employer. I know it takes time, but like in a day, you'll probably be able to apply to 3 to 5 companies. But if you're doing this over a period of a month, it's really helpful. And the cover letter will really increase your chances. Like the strategy that I have is like I have about 70% of the cover letter ready and it will work for everybody. And then 30% is customized to the company that I'm applying to. Like so If they have specific requirements, and I talk about those projects that I did, etc., etc. So that helps. Um, yeah, always write cover letter. And then, of course, remote work is all about communication. You need to ensure that you're spelling the company name correctly. Like you are, like if the company name is in sort of a Hungarian notation, like make sure you are writing that correctly, not putting a space, that there's no space. Like they'll object to it, especially if the founders are sort of looking or hiring. While sending your cover letter, run a spell and grammarly check on it just to make sure your communication is good. There's no like sort of it takes like 2 minutes, and it like really help your application. Right. I want to cover take-home tests quickly. Like this is specifically for programmers, but like nowadays even designers and project managers have some kind of a take-home test. Uh, I've spent between 30 minutes and 7 days on take-home tests. It depends where you are on a job search. Like if I am happily working in the company that I am, and today I will not do a long take-home test. So it depends on how desperate you are. If you are out of a job and if you're out of a notice period as well, then you would be happy to do a 7-day test. But like it depends. So it's up to you. Uh, be wary of the kind of work they're asking you to do. If it seems like they're just getting free work out of you, like it's a red flag, I would say. Like there are a lot of conversations on the Slack group as well about take home tests in which companies make you do like a lot of work and then reject you. Like at the end of the day, you're putting in a lot of effort. Like the companies that I have worked for, like our take home test today is like about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes if you know Python. And I was able to do it within an hour without knowing Python. So like for us, it's important that you're not spending time. And if the company is making you do a very, very long take home test, unless they are like a very, very big brand name that you really want to work for, it's a red flag. So it matters. It varies. When you're writing a test, just don't write it. Like write a lot of comments, explain your decisions. It really helps because like when I am looking at take home tests, I look for that. In like remote work, again, communication is key. So like that gives me a good idea of what kind of communicator you are. Like if I don't understand what your code does, it's like a red flag for me. And if you're busy and you can't get to it immediately, if they send you a take-home test and you're busy in the middle of something, tell them that, hey, I'll do it like next week if that's fine, or like it'll take me longer. Don't don't leave it till the last minute to tell them. It's like it shows up in a bad way. So most companies will be fine to give an extension. They don't really care. It's up to you to send the test, but don't say I'll do it and then don't do it. That's like that's bad. So ask an extension, and if you can't, tell them that hey, I'll get back to you like whenever I can, etc. A lot of times like these tests, like you might feel that hey, this is like sort of a puzzle test, so like make sure you've asked for constraints. Oh, sorry, just one second. Okay. Okay, so make sure you've asked for constraints. What the problem is, don't spend unnecessary time doing stuff which they don't expect. So like if they're just trying to see if you can code and the take home test is like should be done in 15 minutes, don't like try to unnecessarily like complicate the solution to use edge condition, which is going to take you 3 days to do it. Ask them for it and then spend adequate time. Like, and all the assumptions that you're making, like if you're assuming that, hey, like I'm reading a file, but this will not work for a file that is 3 gigabits in like size, stated in a README file, that shows that you have spent time thinking about it. So that really helps. Right. Let's talk quickly about the interview process, right? Yeah, like remote interviewing, like these are some tips and tricks that have worked for me. And also when I'm interviewing, like I look for these things. So it's good. So like one is like be on time. In fact, be 2 minutes before time. It's always good. Like it's looks really bad if I'm like waiting for you for 10 minutes to turn up. It's like it's always negative. I've already developed a negative impression. So like always be on time. Shave if you need to, be well groomed. First impressions, especially behind the camera, are important. So unless like you are a rock star programmer who will get a job regardless of the interview, like be well groomed. Like it makes a difference. This is another important thing. Make sure like the software that these guys are using, like if you've never used Zoom before, have it installed, do a test call, make sure it's all there works properly. Again, remember this deck is from before the pandemic, so like a lot of things now we take for granted, like everybody has been on Zoom and stuff. But like you need to make sure everything works. Speak clearly, especially if you are talking to people who are not in your location. Like this is even true for India. Like if you are living in South India, giving an interview for a Gurgaon company, like and vice versa. Like it's always better to speak clearly and slowly. Not everybody can understand your accent. It takes a few minutes for them to get it. So that's always a good thing to do. You really need to have good internet working. Like this is a remote job. Like your entire job depends upon you having a laptop and a good internet connection. If you don't have a good internet connection, you are not cut out for remote working. Like that's what I will think. Like so always have good internet working. Make sure like you have backup. Like you're not on your phone internet. Uh, this point doesn't really apply. I think everybody's on Zoom calls now, but make sure the software works beforehand. If you're like I've been on interviews in which like 10 minutes goes by in which the mic and headphone the guy is trying to like figure out. It's like again like a negative kind of thing. Have good internet working, yeah. The other thing, of course, like big props for people like who use a quiet room. Like I have done interviews in which the guy was taking from the parking of his company on a phone. I could see trees, birds, like him walking around. It was like it throws me off as an interviewer, and I'm not going to like rate you well. So use a quiet room. Show them where you would work out of. Like don't take it from a bed. Don't take it from the drawing room, like on a sofa. Take it from an environment that shows me that hey, like you are going to be working from here, so you have the setup, and you will be a good remote employee kind of thing. uh, don't use your phone unless like something's like your laptop's got on fire or something. Like make sure that you're doing it from a laptop, you have a good camera, everything is properly set up. If you live in a noisy environment, of course, like you can't help it, like you have kids playing outside or whatever, get like good headphones and use soft like crisp.ai, which is free now for quite some time to cut off background sounds. Like it looks professional. If I like when I'm interviewing, I want the interview to I'm meeting for the first time, right? So I want to talk about stuff that we want to talk about. So like I don't want to like just wait while you're fixing a camera, etc. So like have all this sorted and tell people at home that hey, I'm in an interview, don't disturb. Like if you have kids, make sure like you I mean kids running in totally fine once you're in a job, but like doing an interview, it's like it'll throw you off and it'll throw the interviewer off. It's just better to have like everybody know that you're taking a call and like not walk in your room. Having questions for them is always good. Like it shows that you have sort of read up on the company and you are interested in knowing what the kind of work they do. Asking them about culture is good. Like ask like it also shows what kind of culture you are a good fit for. So this is basically about questions, like ideas about questions that you can ask them. And this is a good question to ask, like especially if it's not our founder. Like you can ask that person that what do they like about working at their company, and there's some like other questions that you can sort of ask and get a good conversation sort of going. Uh, which brings me to the next point, which is make it a conversation. Like if you are in an interview which is going to be purely like technical Q&A, back and forth, rapid fire, like it's going to be difficult for that person to like you, like unless like you have to convert it into a conversation. Like you have to be pleasant, talk about like get them to talk about stuff that you have done in the past. Technically good companies will do that anyways, but if not, like try to get the conversation to going more about your experience and what you bring to the table versus focusing on like how a binary tree is sorted and stuff like that. You want the person who's interviewing you to like you enough to want to go out for a drink with you. Like, I mean, not as friends, but like they don't want to like you don't want to be the person who's like, oh, I want to avoid this guy. Like, you want to be a person who want would not be bad enough to go to a drink with. So like try to get to that stage. And if I'm asking a question and you need to think about something, take your time. It's totally fine to say, hey, like, can I take a minute? I need to gather my thoughts. That's totally fine and welcome. Don't jump into an answer. Like I've seen like a lot of people do that, and then while answering they are sort of fibbing or just trying to make BS up. It's like a very negative thing. So take your time, ask them for extra time if you need to. And after the interview, always send a thank you email, say you had fun doing the interview with you, and don't be afraid to follow up like after the week saying, hey, like what's up? Like what are the next steps? When can I expect to hear from you, etc. Sometimes that helps them get to a decision about you rather than like I used to earlier think it's quite intrusive, but recently we had a person join us who we sort of accelerated our decision because he asked like when are you sort of making decisions. So like don't be afraid to do that. And in the end, like if you're not going to be hired by the company, they're never going to see you again. So it's totally fine if you feel that you're going to come off as like intrusive or rude. It's totally fine. Like once you have been at an interview, you are in a position to send at least 2 follow-up emails, like asking them at what stage they are. It's totally fine. Don't do it like in rapid succession. Give it like a week between the emails at least. Right. Yeah, please use a password manager, like anyone. Like this is, I like to put in my slides because there's so many people who don't use it and it's critical for us to use. Right. So that has been my deck. I think I have taken 30 minutes. Yeah, I think Abhishek, we can get into Q&A. Thanks.